Today we've got a very distinguished panel of entrepreneurs, corporates and investors from across Africa. I'll let them all introduce themselves and briefly explain what they're doing for this next wave of African technology.
Thanks. Good morning, everyone. My name is BUNMI BANJO. I'm based in Lagos, Nigeria. I work for Google. I head our brand and reputation initiatives. One of my key focus areas over the next couple years is digital education. We are training young people across Africa, helping them to understand what the web can do for them in terms of growing businesses and jobs.
And my name is CHARLENE CHEN. I serve as the Chief Operating Officer of a Pan-African digital FX platform called BIPESA. And we're really interested in leveraging blockchain technology to tackle the pressing issues of FX and really expensive payments in, out of, and within sub-Saharan Africa. We're based in Nigeria, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, DRC, and Senegal.
Good morning, my name is Danielle ORNER. I'm the chief scientist with Brave, which is based in Nairobi. We are using machine learning in order to match talent to job in different markets in Africa. We have a very strong team of data scientists and AI experts, and as chief scientist, one of the main things that I'm interested in is to mix different types of data, including hard data about actual coding experience, for example, as well as soft skill, psychological skill, cultural skill, in order to match the best person to the best job.
Thanks. My name is EGHOSA. I run a firm called ECHO. We manage different vehicles focused on making seed through growth investments in technology startups in or focused on Africa.
Great, thank you. So Africa's heading for, close to 1 billion mobile connections. 85% of people are still using basic smartphones and handsets. And I know we're talking today about the next wave of technology, but I'd be interested to get your thoughts on, are we actually building the right kind of technology for the African consumer right now?
Shall I go first? Yeah. Thanks, great starter question there. Are we building the right products? If I'm being honest, I would say no, we're not there yet. I think there's a lot of opportunity across sectors in Africa that I think we're not really focusing on. There are, few bright spots. So in agriculture, you do see there's people bringing in the ideas of using, mobile and using technology to help farmers make better decisions. And you see it in education, you see it in healthcare, but we need a lot more of that. We need to be looking at fundamental issues in Africa and how do we leverage available technology and information we have to start to fix those problems. And I think there's a huge opportunity for us there.
Right. And Charlene and Danielle, you guys are actually building new technology. Can you tell us some more about what this next wave of technologies you're actually building?
I'll start. So I highlighted this a little bit, but BIPESA is leveraging blockchain, specifically Bitcoin blockchain technology as payment rails. So as opposed to being kind of consumer-facing and a front-end retail currency, we're using it just as a kind of a replacement for SWIFT. So let's say a Nigerian company needs to pay a supplier in Dubai. That company would give us Naira locally. We send Bitcoin within minutes to our partner in China, and they instantly disperse, in Dubai, and they instantly disperse dirham into the bank account of the supplier. So we're leveraging blockchain technology more as a replacement to really inefficient settlement rails. And also, we're looking at disintermediating the US dollar, which is a huge dependency across the continent. So as you guys may know, many African countries have huge FX problems where it's very difficult for consumers, for small businesses, even multinational companies, one of which is our client in Nigeria, to acquire FX. So that's one of the ways that we're using blockchain technology.
One interesting problem that we have at the moment in Kenya and other African markets is that the kind of data available in order to understand people is actually lacking. It's very different to the type of data you would have in San Francisco, in London. It's also an opportunity, in my opinion. Using AI, some of the things that we are doing is creating a new cognitive model that are actually adapted to the kind of behavior that people have in different places in Africa. And that also means understanding what kind of person would be best in what kind of environment. To my sense, some of what has been built so far is actually a little bit noisy. Not everybody needs to be a coder in San Francisco, and using the kind of data that you have in San Francisco might actually kind of embroil the way you look at what's necessary. So what we're doing a lot at Brave is just looking at very big amount of data of very different types, and we create those models, and then we find a new way to express what human behavior look like. We think that starting from Africa, we might find some interesting new way to look at people that actually being beneficial in other places as well.
EGHOSA, you're an investor. How have you seen the African tech landscape develop over the last 5 to 10 years?
So I'm both a cheerleader and a skeptic, so forgive my schizophrenia. But what we find consistently is, and I think to Bimi's earlier point, is that, and I'll throw this out there, it's a little controversial, we don't think that there's probably more than 40 entrepreneurs continent-wide that will build venture-backable startups. And the reason why is because you just don't really find a lot of entrepreneurs there who have a high fidelity understanding of both the consumer market as well as the actual products that need to be built, right? So a lot of copy and paste that has been pilloried. There's nothing necessarily wrong with that. I think the key thing is, can you build the right product that has market fit? And you just don't, you struggle with that, right? I mean, we've made a few investments, some disclosed, some undisclosed, and what's really consistent is that when there's product market fit, the growth is crazy. Like, you want to audit it because you don't believe it, right? And and I say this and I marvel. And, I've been in the venture business for a long time, and I'm glad I still get surprised. But once I think you find that, and so what we're finding is that you have this groundswell of developer talent, with Andela and co coming up, but then to take the developer talent and make it product management talent, that's a huge gap that's still not getting filled, right? And so maybe that's, I think, on all of us to start to figure out how to transition that developer talent into thinking about, building, products that have product market fit.
I mean, you raise an interesting point about Andela, and we've got a couple of entrepreneurs and also Google here. Is that tech talent holding the African technology, the next wave of African technology companies back? And what are you, Google, specifically doing to try and address that?
Good question. Yes, I think there is, I guess growth is impeded to an extent because we don't have the technological skills in continents. Back to my earlier point on what EGHOSA just mentioned, people that are thinking about our problems, local business problems, and how to actually help them get at the market locally. And when I say locally, I actually mean locally, like hyper-local, in cities, in districts, versus looking at Africa as one, kind of one place to do business. There's so many differences between different markets that come into play when you're trying to run a business. And having developers and tech experts that actually understand that can bring that to life is critical. Andela is doing a great job, and there's a lot of folks in the market that are actually focused on that, developing skills, and that's one of the things we're focused on. So we just trained, as of last month, over 1 million people in a year on digital, because we're really focused on kind of like scaling basic digital education, so that people actually start to think about, how do I leverage technology in my business? And even if I can't do it myself, what do I need, and who do I, how do I reach the right people that have the right skills? So it's good that we have the Andelas. We need so many more of them, but we also need to go a little bit further back. need basic education, right? We need, before you get to the point where you're learning to become a developer, you need to kind of like have a certain thinking. It's almost like kind of like an engineering type of mind, right? Where you know how to break down problems, you know how to think about solutions in the most effective way, and you do that learning developer skills kind of builds on top of that for you and helps you become that person that actually builds products. So there are gaps, but we're trying to fill them as best possible. I think that, again, there's a lot of opportunity for people in the room to start to think about how do I play in that area of helping to build the skills that are needed in the market.
So Bipesa actually tried to build our tech team in the country offices where we started our company, and our biggest offices are in Nairobi and Lagos. I think the challenge we faced is that we selected a Ruby on Rails stack for our purposes, and that's a skill set that is harder to find across the continent, whereas you're seeing other technologies being taught in schools, in the computer science and IT programs. So I think it depends on what technology you're leveraging. But yeah, I think there's a need for time to have developers who have the technical skills learn how to identify this product market fit. So I think the short-term solution for startups who are global is to bridge local talent with global talent. So one of the things we've done is we have a tech team that's based in Estonia, but we work with local developers to sort of bridge that gap. And so I think there's an opportunity for mentorship and growth, because honestly, as a startup, that has all of the commercial needs to move fast, to show returns to investors, we don't necessarily have the time to be training tech talent as we go. I mean, we've got to scale quickly. So I think, yeah, organizations like Andela will help seed future generations, but in the short run, I think you can bridge global talent, and that's great because, you know, with tools like Skype and Slack, which we use religiously, you can actually collaborate quite well globally.
I think it's interesting here to define what talent means. And I have to say that I've actually seen a huge amount of talent in local markets. It's just a question of how you define it, right? So often you define talent in a technological perspective means a coder. But the truth is that talent is a multifaceted entity. So it includes technical skills, but it also includes psychological skills, social skills, cultural skills. And when you think of talent, you usually think of an individual, but it's also interesting to think about the company that you're looking at and that you're trying to match the talent with. So a person that has a specific set of technical skill might not be the right person in a startup, and might be the right person in a corporate. So I actually think that some of the solution that we can find has to do with matching the right person to the right company rather than blindly looking for very specific technical skills. And there's an interesting work here to be done at the level of understanding what company operated in different markets in Africa, and not only what kind of people operate in the different markets in Africa. So, well, hopefully, hopefully we're helping doing that a little bit, yes.
EGHOSA, I mean, from your perspective, have you seen a lack of talent on the continent compared to the founders that are coming to you, or do you think that it's there, it just needs to be nurtured?
Moving back to start my fund in Africa was a little bit of a jump, I think, for me mentally, because I worked at Intel Capital for about a decade, and my specific focus there was managing all their semantic technology work, which is machine learning, AI, and computer vision. And then I went to Africa and I had to unlearn all of that. And I think, when you have, I've done deals in Asia, in Europe, in the Americas, and you come back and, you have to be, I think, very humble about relearning all the stuff you're doing for that context, right? And, the other thing is when you're looking at these teams, you have to look for other signals, right? Sometimes, so for instance, I'll give an example. In the US, if the CEO is not an engineer, I know lots of my co-investor colleagues that would never touch that deal, right? And, but we would do that in a heartbeat because we will prioritize maybe your engineering talent, yes, on some level, but if there's someone, the co-founder or whatever who has that talent, we're good with that. But in Africa, sometimes your execution hustle is a big deal. And I think more importantly, other than just your execution hustle, your high fidelity understanding of the customer and how to win them and how to retain them, right? The African consumer is a very difficult being. So I'm gonna give you a story of how when you're trying to solve problems, you just don't even know what you're going to hit. So you've got the big e-commerce folks, right? And we went in and we're like, we're never gonna do horizontal e-commerce. And the reason why was that, luckily I did a few deals in India, got one to go IPO, and but what I understood very quickly from India that for you to do an e-commerce play, you start with $1 billion, in dollars, by the way, and you add another 5, and then we're warming up, right? So of course in Africa, if you think India is 5 billion, you're going to actually do that for $1 billion. And you watch the Congas and the Jumias of the world sort of evolve from sort of taking inventory risk to non-inventory risk, the transition to marketplaces. Then you now say, okay, so this business, what is your churn? This business, what is your return rate, right? Very high. Now, I understand e-commerce businesses and return rates because, for instance, Zappos was a 44% return rate, right? Zappos was essentially just a naked hedge. You buy 9 pairs, you try them on, you return 8, right? No problem. But we just discovered that part of what causes the high return rate for Jumia and Conga has a lot to do with logistics. So we're like, really? Why? And then you find out that people order the same items from both stores, and the first one to come is the one you keep. And you return the other one. You wouldn't do that in a like developed market. Like nobody does that, right? Right? But it is literally because one, you got pay on delivery, because you don't have effective payment processes. The second thing is that refunds are a broken system, right? I mean, I'm still chasing my bank for a wrong charge. It's 3 years in August, right? I mean, literally, I'm still looking for my money, and it's like $4, right? And so you've got that problem. So once you now figure out, okay, how am I, trust on a syndicated basis is missing in action, right? So you now see sort of these run-on effects of broken trust, right? I'm not going to pay you up front for this thing I'm ordering. I'm going to order it from multiple stores. The first thing that comes that I like, that looks good, then I will pay you. I pay you in cash, right? And so you're sitting there going, how are you going to build a sustainable business? So, but understanding that model of consumer means that when you now go back and say, let me design this product or this platform, right? It will come in with the high fidelity understanding that the person in San Francisco would never have, just never have. How you build a product for a pay-as-you-go customer is so different, right? So that's what I'm saying. We're just learning. I've done this thing for a while, and I'm still open to learning. But it just tells you, though, that if you figure out this customer, I mean, we talked a little about it in the speaker thing, and how, forget all this Pan-African stuff. Forget this Pan-regional stuff. Forget Pan-Nigerian or Pan-Kenyan stuff. I mean, I think you can build a $60 million business in Lekki. No, in fact, I'm highly confident you can, which is a suburb of a suburb of a suburb in Lagos. It has 1 million households. You can build a $60 million business there, right? And so again, it's, do I understand this consumer? Do I know where this consumer is? Do I know this micro segment? All the macro numbers don't matter, because if you build a really great company, you're focused on a micro economy. That's what Africa is always great about.
I mean, your experience of product market fit in Africa, what's the key? Coming from Google first, I mean, what entrepreneurs in the room here need to actually understand about actually building a product for the African consumer that doesn't have to be a Facebook, or it doesn't have to be a...
We were talking earlier about Techno, a mobile company that's doing very well. It's a Chinese mobile company doing very well in Nigeria. The they had employees living in Computer Village. Computer Village is a market where you go to get mobile technology in Lagos. They had employees living there for 5 years before they decided how to enter the market. You need to understand the user, you need to understand your suppliers, you need to understand how the value chain works, and that stuff takes time. I've been living in Nigeria for 5 years, and in the last 5 years, I've learned so much, and I continue to learn. We've tried so many different things as Google in the market, and honestly failed. I've had to sunset 3 different products for small, medium businesses. Because you come in, you think, oh, all they need is a listing platform, because then they'll just kind of list their electronics, and then we kind of tell the sellers about it. And we have like perfect ideas, but then when it comes to execution, it's not making sense. Right? There's issues with trust. There's so many other issues in the market that make this very, very difficult. And the African consumer has real problems they deal with on a day-to-day basis. So whatever solutions you're bringing to the market has to have those issues kind of in the back of your mind, right? Like, how do I help businesses get at this product in the easiest, most efficient way? Because they don't have the time to try to figure it out. They're not going to call a 1-800 number, right? So how do you get them? And if it's a new product, how do I help them figure out exactly how to get at the benefits of that product? All of that takes understanding the user at the individual level. So really just spending time with the people, spending time in the market, understanding kind of their day-to-day, and then figuring out how your product fits, I think is the right approach.